Welcome to Linda's Corner. My name is Linda Bjork. Today's podcast is about living joyfully by making time to do the things that you love. And I'm grateful to have a special guest with me today, my son, Joseph. Joseph is incredibly bright. He's currently finishing up his law degree at Brigham Young University. He created a YouTube channel called Good and Basic, and he's a husband and father of 4 small children. And I so appreciate you being here with me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
You have so many things that you're working on, and I would love to hear how you are able to find that balance and be able to make time for family and be able to make time for things that you love and enjoy. So if it's okay, can we start with family? I know your beautiful
Absolutely.
wife, Aubrey, and you have an awesome story. Would you be willing to share that a little bit?
It is a good story. Although, understandably, I'm a bit biased. So I met my wife when I was 11 years old. We were part of, bizarrely enough, the same homeschool group. Not typically a place you go to find dates.
No, not really.
And so what happened was we had a group of families that would get together once a week so that all their kids could get together and share what they've been learning, play, and generally get the social interactions that are sometimes missing when you just play with your siblings.
Right.
So we would play with my cousins. A lot of my aunts and uncles were in the group. And then one day walks in this weird girl with her weird mom, and I instantly didn't like her. And I at first it was just kind of a first impression, and then I found out she was smarter than I was, and I really didn't like her. And then she beat me at Mario Kart, and that just kind of sealed the deal. We were enemies for life.
Or at least for the next 5 minutes.
Or at least for the next 5 minutes. And so over the next couple of weeks, she started a newspaper at our homeschool group. And so I immediately created a competing newspaper, and mine had comics, so it was infinitely better. And she once threw a snowball at me, and I waited all morning on the roof of her playhouse trying to get her with a snowball too. And generally I got one-upped every time. And so gradually I kind of grew to grudgingly respect her and then admire her, and before you knew it, she was my first crush, and it never went away.
No, it didn't.
And so I waited for years trying to wonder how it was that I was going to tell her that I liked her, or if I was going to tell her, because that was terrifying. And then finally I did by giving her a homemade steel rose, and I tried to act totally nonchalant.
And you made the rose.
I did. I made it.
That's your first metalworking.
Some of my first metalworking, and also something I learned how to do on YouTube. So that's kind of a
there you go. The beginning
education of the future.
Coming.
So I gave that to her and kind of pretended it was no big deal, and she received it graciously and pretended it was no big deal. And a few months later, I asked her to a dance, and she friend-zoned me hardcore. Said we will only ever be just
Ouch.
friends. Yeah, that was not comfortable. And then I left on a religious mission, and couple years into the mission, I finally worked up the nerve to write her and ask, I still feel the same way, do you? Mm-hmm. And she said, oh, well, actually, the story gets better. She was also on a religious mission, but on a different part of the planet, and so I wrote a paper letter, and to get a response to a paper letter from my mission to hers took about 3 months.
Yeah.
And so I was in limbo land for 3 months, waiting for a response to this letter in which I had bared my heart out. And 3 months later, no response.
Ooh.
3.5 months later, no response.
Ooh.
3 3/4 months later, no response.
Oh dear.
Finally, 4 and a bit months later, I got this beautiful 4-page love letter. And we decided we'd start dating after we got home and see where it went. And
okay, let's pause for just a second. You let me read that letter.
I did.
And when I read it, I went, oh, this is where we are. Because it was a whole change. Your story reminds me just a little bit of Pride and Prejudice.
Yes,
where
the
you
connection.
did the proposal, but it wasn't actually a proposal, and you got rejected hard. And then the second one is, I won't approach you if you still feel the same. I'll never bother you again. And she's just, no, I am so into you. I love you. You are the only person that will ever. And I read that and I thought, wow, is that Aubrey? Is that the same Aubrey that I've known for 10 years? That does not sound like the same human.
I have this huge grin on my face every time I tell this story, and so it's on my face right now. But
and you proved you can get out of the friend zone.
Yeah,
That's a big
apparently
deal.
it's possible. Apparently it is possible. So I
hope for men everywhere.
Jumped on that opportunity and proposed 5 days later. So she very kindly consented, and we've been married for almost 8 years.
Yes. which is super, super awesome. Oh, and I adore
beautiful
her.
story.
You did such a great job getting her.
She is
highly approve.
Amazing. I married up in every conceivable way.
Love her. All right, let's talk about your YouTube channel, Good and Basic. You want to tell me about how that brings you joy, how you got started?
There's actually a funny story I'd like to share about that.
Yes,
so I'm in law school right now, and law school is traditionally known for being challenging and for requiring all of your time. And
all of it.
Most of the wives of the students or the husbands of the students who are attending refer to themselves as law school widows because, the law student is perpetually at the library studying to try to compete with the other students and trying to master the law.
Right.
I have not been one of those students. I have made a very, very conscious effort to decide exactly how much I'm willing to put into my law degree and to stop at that point where I don't want it to take over my life. And part of the reasoning for that was that I spoke with a number of third-year students in my first semester, and many of them expressed regrets for having let law school dominate their lives to a degree that they didn't find was healthy. And then as they got to their third year and their priorities started to shift and they started to realize, actually, I could have gotten a job without, sacrificing my soul, they expressed some regrets that cemented in my mind that, no, this is something that I actually do want to do. And then I had a comment from one of my professors, and she said, don't lose your hobbies.
I like that. A professor said that.
A professor. She said, she was my writing professor, and she said, don't lose your hobbies. If you enjoy skiing, if you play with your garage band, don't stop doing it while you're in law school, because once you leave law school and go into practice, it's not going to get easier. If you lose them now, you've lost them. You're not going to get them back.
Wow. That adds some perspective, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Because, what you typically reason to yourself in law school is, hey, it's only 3 years. I can make a sacrifice for 3 years.
Right.
It'll pay off for the rest of my life.
Right.
Except one other thing you need to know is that law school is selective based on a personality. I mean, almost everybody in there is the type A 4.0 personality
they're driven, they're smart, they're capable.
Driven and just a little bit of a perfectionist personality,
right,
where they don't know when to say enough is enough. Like that is a weakness that law students typically have. And so I listened to this professor, and I had been sitting on a little bit of footage to start a YouTube channel, and I'd had the domain name for like 6 months, and I really wanted to start it, and I had been thinking, well, I'm going into law school, I guess that's over and done with. And after listening to her, I said, you know what? I'm doing this.
Wow, what an influential little comment she
made. And now
made.
I've made 263 videos on YouTube.
263 is where you're at. Oh,
during law school.
During law school.
During law school.
Wow.
So I think
that's so awesome.
Being conscious about it has been an important thing where, I have certain priorities, and I looked really hard at what law school was going to do for those priorities, and it was very good for some of them, but I could fulfill those at a certain level of effort, and I decided not to go beyond that level so that I could have the time for my wife and kids. I'm home by 5 p.m. every day, except for the days when my class ends at 5:15. On those days, I'm home at 5:30, and I try to spend time with the kids between dinner and when they go to bed. And typically, since we just had a newborn, I'm in charge of breakfast, and so I don't leave to law school until a certain time. And so I'm kind of holding on by the skin of my teeth and just barely managing to keep up with the readings. But it is a better place to be for me because I am being conscious about where my priorities are.
You have made your family a priority, and also yourself a priority, and allowing yourself time to have that fun and pursue your hobbies and to find joy. And that is so important for a happy life. And the challenges that you describe are not only in law school. Law school definitely attracts a high percentage where this is going to be an issue, but in anything, it's so easy to put the career first and just, I'm doing this, and sometimes we forget that typically we have a career to support our family.
Yeah.
And the family is the real reason why we're doing it. But somehow it's just so much easier to get caught up in the work part and the requirements and the demands of the work and forget about the other. And in your comment of, I can sacrifice 2 years or 3 years, and then it can be, and I can sacrifice this. They're fine.
And so, just perpetually sacrificing one thing. I've heard a couple of horror stories. I took a class in law school where we talked about work-life balance and the ethics of being a lawyer and the service opportunities that come with that, and kind of a lot of the things that go together with it, not directly talking about law, but about being a lawyer.
Right.
And there was this horror story that really made an impression on me, where there was a man who went to law school and said, I'm just going to put all of my relationships in a box for 3 years and kind of focus 110%, 100% on my law school studies so that I can get the good jobs, and then I'll be able to have all this time to focus with my family and all these relationships. And so he made a conscious decision to put all of his relationships in a box for 3 years.
Was he married?
He was.
Oh.
But he was not by the time he finished.
I'm not surprised.
And so that philosophy of trying to put all his relationships in a box, when he got to the end of it, there was nothing left in the box.
Oh. Yeah.
And that, in my mind, that is so gut-wrenchingly horrible. I mean, that is an eternal loss for a temporary gain, which is exactly opposite of what you want to be sacrificing. When you sacrifice something, you want to sacrifice something temporary for something lasting, something forever, something meaningful. I mean, sacrifice the now for the later, sure. I mean, that can work.
Right, and any type of school or any type of training that you have has a little bit of that element of sacrifice.
Oh, for sure.
You're sacrificing some time, but with the perspective of I'm sacrificing the short term for a gain that is long term.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And you don't kid yourself.
That's probably a good question to ask yourself when you're making any kind of decision that way, as far as balancing of your time, of what, what's lasting, what matters here. Ooh, good point. Excellent.
And a little bit terrifying as well. I mean, that's a sacrifice that we're constantly making. You have opportunity costs. No matter what opportunity you're taking, that means you're not doing the other thing or the other things. And so every time you make decisions, I mean, you need to be doing a little bit of weighing and balancing and saying, is this the thing that is of most worth to me?
Wow.
Now and forever.
Well, what if people disagree with you?
Well, they will. I mean, fortunately, I get to live my life and they get to live theirs. So.
Ooh, wow, you almost quoted my end quote. So I'm going to hold off for that one for just a minute. Super, super awesome. Joseph is very, very interested in ancient technology. It is a passion. It's something that you just enjoy, and you've done some awesome things with it. And you took that wonderful tour to Europe.
Yes.
And went through and made wonderful connections. You want to talk about that at all? What were some of your favorite parts there?
Oh, goodness. So that was actually a funny thing with the sacrifice model, because, I'm running a YouTube channel, and it is so tempting with a YouTube channel to say that big growth where it becomes sustainable and you can live on it is right around the corner. The idea of a viral video is just so enticing that, it could be a get-rich-quick scheme. It could be just so easy. Maybe you just put in a little bit more effort right now, and then it becomes easy. And it's so funny, because I generally do a good job with this at law school, but I have not always done a good job with this with my YouTube channel. Sometimes I've neglected my family while trying to make this silly get-rich-and-famous dream work. And that's not exactly my motivation, but let's be honest, that's at least in there somewhere.
Okay, fair enough.
Sometimes I have done the same things and it's been healthy, and sometimes I have done the same things and it's not been healthy, and it has to do with where my priorities are on the inside. And so this trip to Europe was interesting, because part of it was very healthy and part of it was not. I decided I was going to take time off one summer and spend a month touring Europe and making collaborative videos with some amazing content creators and amazing archaeologists and explorers, and this one guy who did a bronze casting workshop. I made a bronze sword. I got to tour through the tin mines in Cornwall.
Did you get to bring that home?
I did.
How'd you get past security?
I'm not really sure.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
I think that was
mystery,
probably.
But it worked out in your favor.
I think that one was in my checked luggage.
That'd work. Okay.
I think that's what I did.
Okay.
I would hope that's what I did.
Oh, good.
So in any case, I put in a lot of energy and resources to make a trip to Europe. That's not a cheap thing.
Right.
With partially the expectation that it would be worth it on its own, and partially the expectation that, this was going to be the thing that was going to help us to go big. And it didn't help us to go big. Not really. So if I'm measuring it in terms of dollars and cents return, absolutely not worth it. So recognizing that this was a possibility, my business partner and I, considering the trip, made a conscious decision that it needed to be worth it on its own merits, even if we got absolutely nothing from it, before we would consent to make the sacrifice.
When you
and
say
go for
get
it.
absolutely nothing from it, does that mean in terms of extra
No
viewers,
new
or
viewers,
extra
no
money,
new views, no
extra
new money,
whatever?
even
But
if it was a
worth
total
it
drain.
to you.
Yeah. And so eventually I decided that it was, and so we went for it, and it was awesome and amazing. But
So you made that decision about the Europe trip before you went?
before, yes.
Oh, that's good. That shows some
But
perspective.
still, I mean, there's just a little bit of
Come on, come on, come on, come on.
come on, come on, come on, come on. A little bit of gambler's fallacy going on, and that hasn't happened. So one of the things that's been interesting about the YouTube channel is that sometimes I do it with the expectation of it will grow, and that's my reason for doing it, and that's unhealthy. And so the only reason to do a YouTube channel is if it is healthy to do it for it, and then the success is kind of bonus material that may or may not happen.
Oh,
I mean, I have to completely sacrifice the idea that I'm going to make it.
Right.
In order for it to be emotionally healthy to do.
Excellent. That is so important.
Or at least mostly. I'm still
recognize.
working on that.
The fact that you're able to express it and put it into words means you're thinking about it, which is excellent. You're going definitely in the right direction.
That is the hope.
But that's your point is so valid. We need to be able to continue our hobbies. We need to do the things that make us happy. But in that process, if we're sacrificing our family, if we're sacrificing our relationships, if we're putting our hobby and ourself above everybody else, and we lose the family, we lose the relationships, we lose the important things that matter, it's a loss.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tragedy, really. There's a fantastic quote from a financial literacy professor I had once. He said, "Thou shalt not invest the rent money." And I like that for priorities. Like, put using an example of money, put the first money where it really needs to go, and don't count on successes. Like, don't invest the rent money thinking, oh, it'll pay itself back, it'll pay the rent later. No, you pay the rent first, you get the day job, and then you have the creative hobby that may or may not go big on the side.
Perfect. That is
Yeah.
excellent. Excellent. Oh, man, you've got good things. Was there anything else about your YouTube channel or anything that you wanted to share, or do you want to close it up? What would you like?
I actually did a video at one point on my strange relationship with law school. It's called How to Get Bad Grades in Law School. If you'd like to check out that video, then it's at YouTube, and if you look up How to Get Bad Grades in Law School, I think I come up pretty close to the top. So
Excellent.
That's
and
a thing to look up.
Podcast is called Good and Basic. I hope we mentioned that
And
at the
also,
beginning.
we just barely did a collaboration on my podcast, the Good and Basic podcast, where we talked about your experience with depression and finding principles that can help to get out. And I highly recommend going to see that.
Yes, I would like that. Please check him out on Good and Basic. Very, very good. All right. In closing, I would like to share a quote by Sonia Parker. Life is better when you do what makes you happy, regardless of what others think. It's your life, not theirs. Today, I hope you choose to do something that makes you happy. See you next time on Linda's Corner.